Brendan Skolsky, get the tables. And I swear to God, if the Eagles go down to Buffalo and they lose again, I'm going to put the whole goddamn team through a table. Brendan Albert is here. Mike Skolsky as well. I am Adrian Fedke. We're going down to Buffalo. And you know what? I've always wanted to go through a table. Not going to lie. I've always wanted to get hurt by going through a table. I've always wanted to try it. Maybe I should try it one day.
I mean, things seem really rough right now, but the best cure for everything is winning. Winning can cure a lot of issues.
Or going through a table.
Or going through a table. I mean, either one. But, I mean, more winning than tables, if you ask me. But, you know, we have a lot of bad things to talk about the last game. But at the end of the day, I know things seem rough. Things seem pretty rough. But rattle off a couple wins, and this becomes a footnote. So, I mean, there's things to be pessimistic about, but winning cures everything.
You're right. I mean, winning, I always said, is like Old Spice in a high school football locker room. Does everything still stink? Yeah, but it's putting a little bit of cover over it. And that's really what winning is. Like, even if the Eagles win this weekend against Buffalo, hey, everyone's going to feel, exciting, but that doesn't all of a sudden mean every problem is fixed, right? But it does make it feel a little bit better.
All right, so the first thing we're going to get into immediately, Eagles panic meter. How are we feeling at the moment? So this is something we actually discussed, Brendan, on your podcast earlier today, so we can plug that. Bert and TD podcast, Eagles panic meter. How are we feeling about the Birds right now after a 3-4 start?
Starting to feel a little troubling. I mean, we're getting some help with some injury, some guys coming back. I mean, Mills played surprisingly well for being out so long. Darby should be back and Jernigan should be back. But at the end of the day, slow starts are killing us. We're still seeing a lot of the same stupid penalties. Defensive line's inconsistent getting pressure, and we're still getting burnt toast by some of the better wide receivers. So we're still seeing some of the same things we saw when we won. Like some of the issues we pointed out in those close games we won. We were like, well, we won, but these guys need to step up, and we're still not seeing enough of the young guys to step up. And with our age, with the roster, you start to wonder how much of this is actually fixable. First, how much is it we just don't have the talent right now? The good thing is the trade deadline is around the corner, and we do have a GM that has a knack for making trades. So I'm not ready to throw away the season yet, but I would say things are looking a little more definitely starting to feel a little pessimistic.
What would you say out of a 1 out of 10? Where are you right now, panic-wise?
What, 10 being most panic?
10 being the most panic, yeah.
I would say 6.5.
That's literally what I said, I think, on the show. Didn't I, Brennan? I said 6.5.
Yeah, that's what you said on my pod earlier, and I gave it a 7. And I'd love it, honestly, everyone in the chat section who's listening to us, like some guys are doing, please let us know. Where are you at in the panic meter, too? I said a 7. One thing I said on my podcast, and Adrian, you and me were talking about this earlier today, I try not to be the guy behind a computer screen talking about how NFL players are soft. I think that's such a weak take for any of us to play. I mean, yeah, we play a little high school ball, but that never gives us the right to tell someone whose professional job it is to get hit by another human they're soft. However, when Brian Westbrook calls your team soft, you're soft. And when he was on that rant, I was kind of listening to him, and I was like, look, you're not wrong here. The biggest takeaway I had here, and I'm just completely stealing a soundbite, but Brian Westbrook was 100% true. Skolsky, you talked about it. You're the second oldest team in the NFL. You're not supposed to get blown out by a division rival on Sunday Night Football. If you were a young team, you're a little more willing to understand sometimes these things happen, but this is a veteran team. So to me, that gives me a little bit of panic. I don't think it's a layup that they beat the Bills. I don't think it's a layup they beat the Bears. However, this is what plays into your advantage. Buffalo's not a great passing team. Chicago's not a great passing team. So matchup-wise, you feel a little more confident because if they want to be physical, minus when you play Zeke, traditionally the Eagles have no problems shutting down the run.
All right, so I'm at 6.5, but if they go and lose to Buffalo, all of a sudden I'm a lot more worried. And the reason why I say I'd be a lot more worried is I want to see how they respond after these 2 losses. So the one thing that I'm noticing, obviously, this year, they're not only getting off to the slow starts, but these slow starts are prohibiting them from playing the game that they want to play. Right. They want to play ahead. They want to have the football. They want to keep the clock turning. And the problem is these game plans that they're coming up with, they have to throw away in the trash because they're down 14-0 halfway through the first quarter. I mean, Jordan Howard gets 5 runs on one drive where they score a touchdown, and he only has 6 carries for the rest of the day because they're trailing 27-7 at halftime. So I want to see one game. I said this on the show yesterday, radio show. I want to see one game where they take the lead from start to, they lead from start to finish. And not only do they have a lead entering the fourth quarter, I want to see them go on one of those signature long methodical drives where they drain like 8 to 10 minutes off the clock. So last year, the problem was closing games. And this year, that's why I was like so excited about the season, because I'm like, well, now they got some running backs where they can close games in the fourth quarter. Well, guess what? They're not going into the fourth quarter with any leads because they're trailing in all these games. So I want to see one game where they're actually going into the fourth quarter with a lead. You kill the game in the fourth quarter by pounding the rock with the O-line and the running backs, and then you come away with a win like that. And one win like that could get the confidence back. That's all I'm looking for this week in Buffalo.
The problem is with the talent currently on our offense is we don't really have any players that can get those big chunk plays at the moment. So our only really option is to be slow and methodical. I mean, look at that Dallas game in the third quarter. We had, we're down by a couple of points. We had that long drive that only netted us the field goal. We don't have any big players right now with Deshaun out. I mean, putting all of our eggs in a 32-year-old Deshaun Jackson's basket, that was something we talked about last week about being a mistake of, because he hasn't played 16 games in the past few seasons. But the next most explosive player is probably rookie Miles Sanders, who's having his own issues running the ball, but he's had a few big chunk plays receiving. But again, that's not ideal that your next best explosive player is your backup running back. And then other thing is, you said the slow starts. I mean, previous weeks I was like, well, we don't really know because, there was a bad penalty. Deshaun had that, that unnecessary roughness, or, there was a fumble or something like that. But after once it's week 7 and you just seem to have a new excuse every week, then you just have to say, we're just not good. I know there's certain things that can affect that, but when it happens like almost 6 out of 7 weeks, that's no longer just bad luck. That's just bad play and bad play design. So those are things that need to change, whether it's, bringing in, shaking up the coaching staff, bringing in new talent. Now's the time to do it in hopes to save the season.
We'll see an OC fired this year. I would not be surprised in the slightest to see in the next 3 to 4 weeks that we see a change at the OC position, because that's one of those things you do when you're trying to shake things loose. You release guys, you talk it up in the media. Guess what? Both of those things didn't work. You released a guy, it didn't work. You had your head coach go on national media and kind of guarantee a win, kind of, sort of, but then not. It was weird. That didn't work either. So, OC getting fired. And Adrian, I think slow starts is a perfect caption here. And let me kind of remind you guys the first 4 possessions of that Cowboys game. Opening drive, Eagles got the ball, which, Adrian, was something you wisely pointed out last week. Went down the field, got to the 50, fumble. All right. Dallas on a short field scores. Okay. Eagles get the ball again. Then we see Demarcus Lawrence get his first sack against Lane Johnson, fumble. Cowboys go down a short field and score again. So you didn't do your defense any favors with two early turnovers. Turnover margin was 4-1. You're not going to be winning many games like that.
All right. So to conclude here on the slow starts, I think the big issue is defense here, and the defense not being able to get off the field. So you're seeing the touchdowns being scored on opening drives, 5 of the first 7 games. So that continues. And there's a discussion we also had earlier on your podcast today. 3rd and longs. These were the notes I jotted down against Dallas. So Dallas was 5 of 8 on 3rd and 6 plus on Sunday. So what does that basically mean? What are we seeing here? We are seeing the Eagles stop the run on 1st and 2nd down, but then they can't get off the field. So they put themselves in favorable situations in these 3rd and long distances, but no pass rush, and no pass rush is allowing the quarterback time to throw, and the receivers are able to get enough time to get the routes past the sticks, and obviously beating these cornerbacks. So where in the past, 2017, you'd see the defensive line get to the quarterback so quickly, he wouldn't have enough time to get the throw past the sticks. Now we're seeing first downs being converted on a regular basis, and it is starting to get very, very frustrating because it's like a 3rd and 10, and I'm not confident they can get off the field. So numbers to throw at you. I talked about the third downs. They are right now 18th in red zone defense after being first last year. So defense to me is the issue. You're seeing touchdowns being scored instead of field goals, and then you're not getting off the field on third down.
Yeah, I mean, well said. I mean, we talked about last week about the defensive front four has not been getting pressure. I mean, it's kind of like a double-edged sword right now because our secondary hasn't been that talented. So when we're giving QBs more time to throw, that's more time for receivers to get open against our shaky secondary. It's already hard to stick with NFL wide receivers for a long period of time, but when the talent isn't there, it's even less of that window. So what you're seeing is Jim Schwartz, who's not used to blitzing, starting to blitz more, and he's not very good at calling blitz. He did that zero blitz, and he had all his cornerbacks playing light, and Dak just audible to a slant and hit us for a big gain. So I mean, if you look at, let me try to pull up these stats right now.
As you pull them up, I'm going to ask this question as you come back. So because I'm going to post it on here. Bigger issue right now, is it offense or is it defense?
It's defense to me. I mean, and I say that because, Adrian, I look at the offense. The only one who's not healthy right now is Deshaun Jackson. The rest of the guys are healthy. So I guess if you were going to make an argument for the offense, you would say, well, at least, we got some injuries on the defense, and that's why they're not good. Just execution on the offense. On the defensive standpoint, I think it's just the roster itself. I don't see any defensive end guys that really can get after it. I don't see any defensive backs, even if they were healthy, that we're going to solve these problems. So to me, Adrian, I say the defense because it's not like there's anyone on the roster.
I say it's defense as well because they're the ones that's really like getting the Eagles off to these bad starts. So everyone's really focused on the offense, but it's like I want to again see a game where they can control it and play the way that they want to play. They haven't played one game where they play the way that the style that they want to play. And to speak on Skolsky and the blitzes, the thing that I'm seeing is it worked earlier in the season when teams weren't caught on because, Jim Schwartz, the guy who doesn't blitz a lot. But now that it's on tape and we're seeing it week after week, teams have caught on. So my thing that I would do, as Dave Portnoy was trying to troll me on Twitter, because he was talking about, Nick Foles and stuff. But the one thing that he did the little eye emojis. And he did the eye emojis, and it caught my attention to something that was said. And, Malcolm Jenkins said one of the reasons why the defense got better last year was because they simplified things. Less blitzing. They let the D-line get after the quarterback. So while Dave Portnoy idiotically thinks that Carson Wentz is the reason for the 3-4 start, it's the defense. It's the defense. Shut up, David. Carson
Wentz is the reason for the 3-4 start, but he's the reason we're not 1-6 right now.
There you go. I had to wait. I was about to. So I was like, "Whoa, where's he going with that?"
No, I mean you're not wrong here. Look, I'm just gonna go straight stats, and you know what? Yeah, obviously he had the fumble against the Cowboys last or Monday night, 2 nights ago. That one's on him. Okay, fine. I'll give him that fault. But this is the reality here, fellas. They're the only team in the NFL to allow 20 plus points in the first half in all 5 of their games. Only team in the NFL to allow 20 points in the first half. You can try to say, oh, well, that's on Carson as much as you want. But the reality is, unless Carson's lining up at corner, that's not on Carson there.
So let me take this contrarian since you both went defense, and I agree with that. But
Appreciate that.
Let me go. Here's where I see why I'll maybe say offense is defense. We have, like I said, Ronald Darby's getting healthy. Craven LeBlanc should be back from IR soon. Tim Jernigan should be coming back soon. So we at least have some talent coming back. Offense, we have Deshaun, but I don't really know what Deshaun we're going to get. I mean, is this a sports hernia where he's a speed receiver. Is he going to have his speed when he comes back? I don't know what to fully expect from Deshaun when I get him back. And it's a lot of, I haven't seen anything from Matt Collins at all. Let me see. I had the one stat up. So he has 139 snaps in the last 4 games, 1 reception, 13 yards. I mean, and then I guess whatever they're seeing from Arcega-Whiteside,
That's Matt Collins.
that's Matt Collins.
Oh my God.
139 snaps, 1 reception, 13 yards in the last 4 games.
Yeah,
That's absurd how useless he's been. And and for some reason they won't play Arcega-Whiteside. I mean, unless he's not looking great in practice. But we're putting a lot of faith again in an injured Deshaun Jackson. So that's why I'm a little worried about the offense right now, because I think we're going to need some outside help. Whereas the defense, at least we have some guys coming back. Are they great guys? Are they question mark? But probably not. But they're at least probably improvements and more bodies and more experience. They're not practice squad caliber guys. How we're going to be trotting out a practice squad defensive tackle start this week. So at least there's some help. Where offense, I'm not as confident that we're going to get some of those guys back.
All right, so we got Brendan for a couple more minutes here before he has to depart, as we've already done 16 minutes here. This is crazy. All right, so some people are in the chat. They're wondering. I also did a video earlier this week on Antonio Brown, if the Eagles should sign him. I mean, I don't think that's something that they're going to do, but I'll pose the question to you guys. So trade market, I mean, guys are going for high prices. Mohamed Sanu, a 2nd rounder. Emmanuel Sanders for a 3rd and a 4th. So there are 2 guys out there who we can potentially get for free. Antonio Brown, Josh Gordon. Would you go and sign one of them?
Josh Gordon, I would particularly take a flyer on. I think he would be very cheap. And obviously, the Patriots kept him through all the things he had, and his issues haven't been any locker room related. It's been more addiction related, which is more of a mental health issue, which he's been working hard to fix. And everything else I've heard about him has been pretty solid. So I wouldn't be worried about bringing him in and causing any rifts in the locker room. I mean, do I think he's the same guy as he was when he was that stud receiver for the Cleveland? No, but I mean, bet you he'll get you more than 1 reception, 13 yards, 4 games. He's a veteran wide receiver who can potentially be had for cheap without giving out any draft picks. So that would definitely interest me. Antonio Brown, that's a whole circus. That's a whole sideshow. That's, bringing something to the locker room that we're already seeing like we're kind of shaky right now. I don't feel like we're in the best position to take in someone like that at the moment.
Here's how I look at things. First, the Josh Gordon situation is really wonky right now. I mean, the news literally broke about 15 minutes before we all jumped on here. So I think we're all still in the gathering information standpoint.
Yeah, we don't even know what's going on right now. So, like, there could be other issues here. But basically, he's got put on IR, but, like, the knee injury isn't that big of a deal right now, and he's going to get released. So, sorry, Brendan, keep going.
No, you're fine. I mean, this is tough. The way if I'm going to be the guy who's reading into it the positive, they just traded for Sanu, so they're looking for a guy to waive on their roster. Well, naturally, you're going to waive a receiver. So what guy is the easiest one to waive? Josh Gordon. That's how it would make the most sense if I'm spelling it out that way. So, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, the guy take a flyer on him, The AB situation is really, really iffy. And Skolsky, you hit on it, but I want to expand on it here. Does anyone really think the Eagles locker room is a perfect locker room right now? Because I sure as hell don't. I mean, I was the last person to ever think that Alshon was maybe a guy that would be an issue. And now it hasn't been clear. Was he the unnamed source? Wasn't he?
I've got my thoughts on the situation. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're fine. That's really weird to me. So I say all of this here is like, look, if this is Madden, absolutely, I'm going to sign AB tomorrow. But this is the real world here, and that brings a lot of other baggage in there. And I think the Eagles, they need to figure their own shit out in-house before they worry about stuff out of house. So I don't think this is the team that makes the most sense for AB. If you ask me to put on a prediction hat, how about the Seahawks? That would be the team that I would say would make the most sense, or maybe even the Packers. But I just don't see it in Philadelphia right now. I think they got to worry about more stuff in-house before they consider out-of-house stuff personally.
Yeah. I'm with you there. I would potentially take a flyer on Gordon, but Antonio Brown is just not the guy. And honestly, he's not deserving of a job. You know what? Like, the way he handled the Oakland situation really rubs me the wrong way. And to see Oakland actually do fairly well, and to see, like, kind of laughing at him in the distance now that they're 3-3. But the way he, like, smiled and ran out of the house after he got cut, like that really rubs me the wrong way. It's like, all right, you know what? Fuck you. You're a selfish prick. I don't want you on any football team. You should be like Colin Kaepernick and blackballed from the league, to be honest with you. That's how I freaking feel about him. But there's that. Now, Brennan, do you have to go? Do you have to leave here now?
Well, I can get another 10. Let's keep it rolling.
All right, we'll do another 10. All right, so we'll ask a trade deadline question. Do you think they make a move? Because here's the thing about you got to keep this in mind. Howie Roseman used to be ahead of the curve when it came to the trades. If you remember this, nobody used to make trades in the NFL. And there was a point where, like, I don't think GMs knew what type of price tag to put on players because we saw Jay Ajayi go for a 4th-round pick. Well, now that more teams are getting in on this, there are more. There's more draft compensation that you have to give up, and this is causing an issue because the Eagles really can't be parting ways with draft capital. They're the second oldest roster in the league. They have 2 guys making $100 million. You need to start drafting better, obviously, but you need to keep the picks and get younger. So would you guys be in favor of even making a trade at this point?
I would. And, I mean, when you make a trade, you don't have to get a mercenary like Golden Tate where you give up a mid-round pick and then you boot him at the end of the year. We can get, take a flyer on someone that's younger and underachieving but on a cheap contract. Maybe a change of scenery will, boost it for him. I would take calculated risks where, I'm not, mortgaging the future too much, but I'm taking some low flyers on some guys. I would be open to trading Big V to get extra draft capital and then possibly making me more willing to, trade for someone like Chris Harris or trade for someone like Robbie Anderson. But right now, Big V to me is like a luxury for a good team. He's that solid backup tackle. But with him being a free agent after this year, we have other issues right now that are more pressing than our backup swing tackle for someone who's not going to be here next year. So, I would consider trading him and then possibly using one of our then 11 picks we would have in the 2020 draft or more and bringing in a couple guys who could come here. We talked about Wilson from the Dolphins or Devontae Parker or Robbie Anderson on the flip side. I don't know if he'd be in our price range with Patrick Peterson, but I'd kick the tires. I believe he has another year after this one.
Yes.
Chris Harris, he's on the fence where I said before, like if we're trading for someone, I either want him to be young or have years left on their deal. He's kind of being 30 years old and being a free agent next year. You have to kind of factor all that in. But he's probably like the oldest I would go with a 1-year deal. But I would make trades, but again, I wouldn't be getting guys like Golden Tate, who I don't really have that big of an inclination to bring back next year. I'm looking for guys that could potentially be next season and beyond.
I really like Albert Wilson, one Skolsky, because I actually like this draft a lot. This is actually my favorite time of the year is the draft. So it's something I really try to look at all year. And I think this is a really good draft this year. So this is definitely not a year I would trade a 1 because I think you can get a really good receiver in this draft class if that's what you wanted. My kind of thought is why would you trade a 1 for AJ Green when you probably can get a really good receiver with a 1 this year and have him for much longer while AJ Green's on a 1-year deal, hasn't been healthy the last 3 years. He's been kind of a boomer bust, fit healthy last couple seasons. So I'm not a huge fan of trading a day 1, and I'm actually not a fan of trading a day 2. So if I can trade some day 3 picks, get a guy like Albert Wilson that simply just says, hey, line up here in the slot and just run straight. That's all you need to do. Just run straight. And we can trade a 5th rounder for him. I think that's a very realistic situation, but I wouldn't trade anything more than that. I also would say this. I would be a little bit nervous about making trades right now because if the Eagles lose to Buffalo, I actually don't see a way at this point that the Eagles then would be able to get a wild card because I think the wild card would have to go to a West team or a North team, which then means you put all of your eggs in the basket of saying, is Dallas going to slip up? Which they might because it is the Cowboys. Let's not get twisted. But then you're putting all of your eggs in the basket. You have to win the division. And that's kind of a bit of a dice roll for me in a draft class that I personally like. I would actually say, hey, if I can trade day 3 picks, sure. Day 1s, day 2s, no deal, and I'll sit tight.
And let me quickly before you get in, you mentioned day 3 picks. As of now, we're projected to have 2 third-round picks, 2 fourth-rounds, 3 fifth-rounds, and a 6th. So we have that capital. And I agree with the first and second because, like you said, our season's kind of at the crossroads where are we giving up a 13th overall pick? Or are we giving up a late 20s?
Right.
There's too much at risk right now where I would give up one of those. I agree on that.
And I said this on the pod with Adrian today, and you don't get younger through trades. You don't get younger through free agency. You get younger through the draft. That's the only way you can realistically, consistently get younger with an NFL roster. Your second oldest roster, the draft picks actually matter. I'm not saying that you're a seller at the trade deadline. Let's make sure I'm clear about that here. But I'm simply saying if you're making trades, the phone calls start and end with, is it a day 3 pick you want? If the answer is more than that, you hang up the phone.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the boat with you two, and I think that's the move that would kind of be coming. Like think Matt Klentak and the Phillies. Like everybody wanted them to make a move, but they just weren't going to make a move with all the money that they spent in the offseason. They're going to kind of poach and pick their spots. And I think that's what Howie's going to do. I don't think he's going to overpay for anybody. Like Patrick Peterson would be great, but I think he's going to cost too much, like especially at this point, if the way the market is playing out for all these players. So, Albert Wilson, like for a 5th round pick, if that's possible, that's going to be what you're looking for right now. All right.
And Patrick Peterson would make the difference between us making the playoffs and not making the playoffs, and I was confident in that. And I say, okay, we're a championship caliber team. If we bring in Patrick P, I would say go for it. But our holes are bigger than that right now.
Yeah, I mean that's putting a Band-Aid on a gushing wound. And I hate to throw salt in this, but if those 2 catches are different in Detroit and Atlanta, I think all 3 of us are saying, yeah, let's make those day 2 picks, right? But those 2 drops completely change the context of this conversation.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who want AB. I don't think people understand why you can't get AB.
Like Brennan said, if it was Madden 100%, he would have been signed a long time ago. But
there's a reason why he hasn't been signed by anybody.
I just have a hard time. I have a hard time pulling the trigger when you're having a lot of in-house issues to think that it's a good idea to do it. I just don't like it personally, but that's just me.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk about the Bills. And, all right, they obviously have a great defense. But talking about the offense, now the only thing I would be concerned about here, matchup-wise, is Josh Allen and his legs. Because the Eagles kind of have trouble with mobile quarterbacks. But other than that, there's not really a matchup problem here that I'm really that worried about.
I agree 100%. We seem to be struggling with mobile QBs. The other one, he's not a top-tier receiver, but John Brown is a burner.
He can run straight.
Yeah, and that right now our start, if Darby's out or Darby's limited or he's not at full speed, I mean, our corner's strength right now, Mills and Rasul Douglas, is not deep speed. So if Josh Allen can buy some time with his feet, we've been giving up those big plays all year. We saw Scary Terry do it twice to us, almost 3 times. We saw Stephon Diggs do it to us 3 times, almost 4 times. So I mean, there are some things to worry about besides just his legs, even though they're not the big name guys. So it's going to be a big test. It's a huge game for us, that's for sure.
Some interesting. I mean, Josh Allen look, if his name was Joshid Allen, we would talk about him like he's a scrambling quarterback more than people really want to. Let's call it what it is. That's what he is. He's a running quarterback, and there's not a lot of weapons out wide here. This matchup honestly doesn't terribly frighten me. The only thing that scares you is him extending the play because, again, you can't ask any defensive back to cover a guy for more than 4 seconds. It's just not normal in the NFL to work moving backwards for 5-6 seconds and be able to blanket a guy. So that's my biggest thing, which honestly, Adrian, that's not a defensive back comment. That's a defensive line comment that you have to get home after that long anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So Josh Allen on the offensive side of the ball, and then defensively, I mean, you can make the argument that this is a top 5 defensive unit in the NFL at the moment. I believe they're top 10 in both passer rating allowed and also yards per carry allowed. So run defense is equally as stout as the pass defense. This is going to be a tough test for the Eagles offense. And you know what, man? I want to see them again. This is what I talked about earlier. I want to see the offense come out and again in the first half actually establish some momentum. And keep control from start to finish. That's what I want to see here. So I guess we'll do. We didn't really talk about the Bills that much, but Brendan's got to go. So let's do predictions right now.
All right. So, I mean, like you said, their defense is ranked high a lot. But, I mean, if you look at some of the teams they played,
Right.
I mean, besides the Patriots, I mean, I guess they did play the Jets with Darnold. But, I mean, overall, the other guys were Giants, Bengals, Titans with Mariota, and Dolphins. I mean, not the most impressive group. It's kind of stacking the numbers against some terrible teams. I think it's just too important. I mean, after that big embarrassing loss in Dallas, I mean, and a team we match up well against. I feel like I've like a broken record with like last week. I just can't. I feel like there's too much at stake, and it's not as much at stake for Buffalo. Like this is like a do or die for us almost, which is weird to say because we're only one game out of first place. But after those last two blowouts, we need that. We need this win. For Buffalo, I mean, if anything, they're overachieving. If anything, this is a perfect team for us to be going against one. So it's not at dire straits like we are. So I think there's just too much at stake for us. I think we're going to go at this like a playoff game, and I'm going to pick us. Give me 30-17.
Oh, okay. Feeling confident.
That's my biggest prediction yet, so I'll probably be dead wrong, but that's what I'm going with.
Yeah, and feel free, guys, like several of you guys are doing, please put in your predictions here. I'm going to go in a similar way as you, Skolsky. I'm just – again, this is what gets me in trouble because I always look at a roster and I say, there's nothing that really scares me about the Bills offense until I remember, oh yeah, the Eagles defensive backs is actually what the bigger issue here is. I think that when I look at this, I would take the Eagles. I think I will take the Eagles 24-17 here, guys. So I think it's a little bit lower scoring. I'm on the same train of path as you, Skullman, here. But let me just kind of buckshot a couple things here before I piece. Someone said this in the comments, and it just made my insides laugh. And Brandon, I'm not ripping on you because you got a good name, my man. I mean, I feel you. So like you're my guy right off the jump. But when last time Urban Meyer was on a sideline, he was getting $8 million a year. The NFL offensive coordinators may be making $1 million. Urban Meyer is not coming back to listen to someone to tell him what to do to take 1/8 of the last pay cut. He's waiting for USC or Florida State. That's it. So the Urban Meyer offensive coordinator is equal to a pipe dream that is never going to happen. I hate to burst your bubble, man, but I love it. I love the dream, but it's just not realistic here. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you guys having me on, and I'll be happy to join you again next week.
All right, so. I was curious to see, what the defense ranked last year since, it's been such an easy schedule so far for the Bills. So I did happen to see that they were third in pass defense last year in terms of passer rating allowed, and then 10th in rush defense. So, I'd say the defense is pretty good. Sean McDermott, obviously a defensive coach, and they got a good defense. But I think the Eagles do bounce back. I think they go down to Buffalo, and they need this win, obviously. It's not a must-win because the NFC can be had, but, this is a near must-win. This is very important. This is something that they need to get. So I think they go down to Buffalo and they win. I don't think it's going to be that high scoring because I think Buffalo's defense is pretty good, but I don't think the Bills are going to score a lot of points. So I got 19-13 Philly here. That's what I got.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm feeling some turnovers. That's why I'm thinking the points are coming from, not necessarily our offense being explosive out of the way. I think we're going to hopefully get some short field position and make the most out of it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I think that's about it. We got 34 minutes in. Anything else you would like to comment about this game?
Not so much. I mean, I kind of talked about before bringing in either shaking up the offensive coordinator. I mean, I guess we can wait and see what happens this. I do think some people are putting too much blame on Mike Groh and kind of overlooking some of the other issues. I'm not saying he's not a problem. I think he is a problem, and I would not mind bringing an outside source or shaking things up, but he's not the sole problem. It goes way deeper than that. I mean, I wasn't a fan of the play calling in Dallas. That's on Doug. It's a collaboration effort between him and Press Taylor. I mean, you wonder since, Doug is, if you look at his coaching experience, it's not as big as other head coaching. He doesn't have the big NFL resume like a lot of other coaches do. So you wonder, how much is it his inexperience now that he doesn't have an experienced guy like Frank Reich to bounce ideas off of. So that's something to keep in mind. Where if we do make changes, can we bring someone who's been in the league a long time, where he can use Doug's creativeness and kind of merge that with some of traditional NFL concepts and find that nice medium that we did back in 2017.
The other thing I'm noticing with the slow starts, we didn't really get into this, but the offensive line has been struggling once they get down, and it makes it so predictable. Again, you know the pass rush is coming because you're down. And Brendan wants to chime back in.
I'm back.
I thought you left because you had to go.
I was supposed to, but then I was like, nah, I can't miss this. I'm back.
I was about to just end it.
No, I want more. Have you guys done questions?
No, we can do questions.
All right. That's what we'll do. We'll take some questions. All right, that's what we'll do. All right, let's see. People, Mike Groh. I agree with you about Mike Groh, by the way. All right, so did we talk about Robbie Anderson? Philly0024 wants to ask, what about going after Robbie Anderson? I know that's something that Mike Skolsky would want to do, but again, going back to this conversation, how much is he going to cost now? Because the price is going to probably be high.
I've been banging the drum for Robbie Anderson way before we got blown out these last two games. Temple made. I'm high on Robbie Anderson. He's that deep threat.
Yep.
There's a lot. I think even if Deshaun comes back, you can't have enough speed on their offense. Now that Mohamed Sanu got traded for a second rounder, you saw Sanders get traded for a third and fourth. I was thinking we could get Robbie Anderson for possibly a day 3 pick, most the third rounder, but now I'm not so sure. I'm still 100% interested in Robbie Anderson, but it would have to be at the right price. I think he's only signed through this end of this year, so I'm not going to give up an arm and a leg for him. But obviously, I love the fit, I love the player, and if we can get him for conditional third, conditional fourth, I'd be open to it.
Yeah, it would have to be a 2. Look, now that Sanu trade, look, that's probably going to be the 60th through the 64th overall pick, by the time the Patriots are done with the season here, right? But, yeah, look, Robbie Anderson, his age, his contract, his athletic ability, his vertical ability, his upside, it's all better than Sanu. So, naturally, you have to say, okay, well, then he's going to go for a mid-second round picks. And I'm just not crazy about that for a guy that you're probably going to have to pay a fair amount of money to. And the other thing too here, fellas, is you're paying a fair amount of money to him. And I'm not ready to say he's 100% a stud. I think he's a good receiver, but that puts you in kind of a bind to say, okay, are we really ready to pay a guy X amount of dollars based on 8 games as an Eagle? That's tough to say. So I'm not a huge fan of the idea of Robbie Anderson this year. I would have loved it last year, but thus is life.
To be fair, Sanu is signed through next year too. So, I think that does bump up his trade value with him only being $6 million next year. So there's some things to consider, like I said, for the right price, but I'm not giving up high draft picks for him. Like Brendan said, there is risk. He's not a slam dunk. He's still kind of like, he has high ceiling, but his floor isn't like the highest either. So
and a little bit of an injury bug guy too.
There is injury bug, and there's some red flags with his personality in the past. It seems to be cleared up. But you still have to keep that in the back of your mind before you give up high draft capital.
All right, so Bubba0224 says, I love how nobody talks about Preston Williams for Miami in big bold capital letters. So we're going to talk about him right now.
Yeah.
All right. Preston Williams, that's someone Brennan loved. I think is your favorite receiver going into this draft. I love him too. I would love for him to be in Philadelphia, but this is the exact type of guy that Miami would be stupid to get rid of.
I don't think this is somebody they get rid of.
They're rebuilding. They want guys like him that are costing them next to nothing because he was a later round pick because of the flags off the field, and he's locked up under team control for 4 years, I believe.
There's a 3-year deal.
Okay, 3-year deal. They don't have any interest in trading him. He's the type of guy you keep for your rebuild. He's not costing them anything. There's no reason for them to trade him unless we overpay, which we just talked about. We're not really looking to overpay. So it's not going to happen. Dolphins aren't. I would love to have him, but Dolphins aren't trading him.
The real question is Devontae Parker is probably would be him, but
him or Albert Wilson. We talked about the other.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Devontae Parker, he's potentially someone that could be gotten for like a day 3 pick. I mean, like I said, that's the type of guy we could trade for. Someone who's been underachieving, who's young, that potentially a change of scenery can help him reach his potential. So that's the type of guys I'm looking at. Obviously, would love Preston Williams, but they're not trading him.
Yeah, Preston Williams, I think it's also important to remember here. The reason that he went undrafted is he had a pretty large domestic violence charge that was the result of him having to get kicked out of his previous school and go to Colorado State before he went undrafted to Miami. So he does have a little bit of background for what that's worth. Some guys have issues, some teams, some players, some GMs, some coaches, some fans have issues with it, some don't. I think it's just important to at least make sure we all are aware of that, though, right? And obviously his upside is through the roof. But as exactly like you said, man, 3-year deal here. He's making like $500,000. This makes no sense for Miami to move this guy right now.
Yeah, it's not happening. All right, Emmanuel Ase asked, "What do you guys think of how the overall rookie class has played so far this year?"
It's a good question. Dillard, I mean, he was a little up and down, which you expect. I mean, it was a tough situation. I mean, Dallas has 2 great defensive ends, and I mean, he got beat a few times, but there's other times where he held his own, which looked pretty impressive. You saw the flashes of what could be there. And I did really like that Jason Peters, even though he's inactive, he traveled with the team to help him out. I thought that was pretty cool. Miles Sanders, like we talked about last week, it seems kind of weird because he wasn't really used as a receiver at Penn State, and now he seems to be only being so far been effective as a receiver. But that his problem is what a lot of like uber athletic college running backs have. Where in college they got by with their athleticism. Now they have to, read the, they have to let the game slow down, be more methodical, choose when to hit the hole and when not to. I think the running game will get on track. I'm still high on them. We see the flashes of the passing game, but it's coming around. Arcega-Whiteside, it's way too late, way too early to call him a bust. But obviously, it's disappointing not to have him on the field right now, especially considering our wide receiver struggles. So, I mean, and that's pretty much all we really had. I mean, am I missing anyone? We had
Sharif Miller hasn't even played.
Which he was always thought of as a project. So
yeah, and
he was never really supposed to play this year.
Isn't on the team anymore.
Yeah, and that was that one I'll call a bust.
Yeah.
I usually don't call a bust that early, but that might have been the worst preseason quarterback
I'm trying to think of like, man.
And we've seen Christian Hackenberg. We've seen other guys.
Yeah.
Like, what like.
I'm trying to remember who was wasn't Ryan Mallett picked in like the third? Somebody was picked in the 3rd round then cut. I don't think it was Ryan Mallett. It was somebody else. But they were cut. I don't remember what it was. But yeah, go ahead, Brennan.
No, I mean, look, I think the rookie class is fine. By the way, Emmanuel, looking pretty fresh in that suit, man. If you want to, throw me a DM, go ahead. I'm looking to get a new suit, so I'm always looking for little tips here, brother. I think the rookie class has been fine. Let's go to JJ Arcega-Whiteside because I think the natural comparison is DK, right? Because of the timing of when guys were drafted. And
yeah,
I was not a DK Metcalf fan, and I'm still not a DK Metcalf fan. And the biggest reason I say this is of the 36 games in college, he only played 20 of them. He was a guy who was injured in college a lot, and physically, he's a freak. Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He's a complete monster here. But you look at the stuff that he's running in Seattle, it's very, very simple so far. And he's not exactly setting the world on fire, but he's in a perfect fit because they're one of the most run-heavy teams, and just asking him to run play action down the seam eventually is a great fit for him. So I'm not ready to bury JJ Arcega-Whiteside by any means. Does it hurt a little bit to see DK Metcalf having a little bit of success? Yeah, it is. But I think it's also important to remember here, fellas, hey, DK is a guy that he could get injured tomorrow and miss the next 10 games of his career, and no one would be surprised. So I think that's important to at least just put in the front of our minds and not just drink all the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. All right. My thoughts, I mean, it's just really too early to tell. You're not even at the halfway point of the season. I'd say that I would have liked to see more of Sanders running the ball in terms of less hesitation hitting the hole.
Sure.
Because there was an occurrence where there was a 3rd and 4 on Sunday. Remember when they ran it 3 straight times? He should have picked up the first down on that play. There was a big hole, and he kind of has, so he kind of like taps his feet, and then he darts through the hole. Whereas you see Jordan Howard run, and it's a lot more decisive. So
I think that's just like, veteran versus rookie. I mean, if we're still seeing that, like, next year with Miles Sanders, then I'll be a little bit worried. But I think the game just needs to slow down for him. He needs to trust himself a little bit more. Needs to trust the coaching and experience. That should all come with experience. Some guys, obviously, they never really get to that point. But I'm confident that Miles will figure it out, especially with Deuce is a great running backs coach. So I think even as the season goes along, we'll start seeing better. We've seen improvements from the beginning of the year. So I think that just comes with experience. And as someone just pointed out in the comments, he's been actually surprisingly good in pass protection. So that's something that should help him stay on the field as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally with you. I mean, you could argue he's probably the second best rookie running back right now, and he's having a really good season. So I have nothing but good things to say about him. The only thing, if I'm going to be critical, hold on to the damn ball, man. I mean, you just got to hold on to the damn ball because really that ball is your job. If he doesn't have those fumbles, I think we're seeing a much bigger discrepancy in the amount of carries between him and Jordan Howard, honestly.
Mm. Yeah, what he's doing pass catching game is great. So that's great to have that asset. You can match him up against linebackers because Sproulson hasn't exactly been healthy again. So it's like, how many times
let me ask you guys this. What do you think about, kicking Miles Sanders out in the slot, kind of how we used to use B. West back in the day, just to get an option out there, just to have a threat out there?
I don't like that.
I would love to see some creativity. I mean,
The only reason I'd be hesitant in that, Skolsky, is because if you do that, then that means you probably only get one of the two tight ends on the field at a time. That's the only reason I would be hesitant about that. But honestly, I have no problem with it besides that reason.
Yeah, I mean, mix it in every once in a while.
Sure. Yeah, I totally agree with you.
All right, we're going to take one more question here, and he asks,
I love this.
Dynasty 215, will we ever draft a linebacker or guard? All right, so the reason why I picked this one, a lot of people are complaining about the linebackers. It's like, you cut Zach Brown, you don't have any linebackers. Something you need to understand here, again, it's like nickel most of the time. You only need two linebackers on the field, and this isn't really where the issues on the team are. Is linebacker.
I think Bradham being out was kind of hurt us last year.
Yeah, it did hurt us last week.
Last week. But yeah, it's not our defensive scheme. It's not very heavy on linebacker play. I mean, we did draft Nate Gary, who shows flashes. We still not a stud linebacker, obviously, but our defense emphasizes more on a stud front four. Than anything, let that happen. So, I mean, I would love to have someone like Leighton Vander Esch. That's the person I wanted in that draft before.
I know. I wanted.
That was my darling of that draft. So, yeah. I mean, I don't think they're against taking a linebacker if it's someone to that caliber, but I don't see them using big resources or big money on someone just because it's not as important on their scheme. Because they think. They have a diverse enough group of linebackers where they can rotate them based off the situation, whether they think it's a running down or passing down, essentially.
This is so wacky to me. I mean, look, this is so weird. I'm all about supporting the offensive line. I mean, I've always said, like, offensive line is one of the most important, if not the most important position to attack in the draft almost annually, just because of how it affects everything. A linebacker – yeah, it's a bummer. I mean, you'd love to have some good linebackers, but this isn't that big of a concern to me. I would say, like, hey, it's odd to see the Eagles just simply never invest in a linebacker, but not a huge deal to me.
Yeah,
and guard we have been drafting. I don't know what he's talking about. I mean, we have Matt Pryor, Isaac Sayamalu.
Matt Pryor got drafted. He's a guard. Yeah,
Isaac Sayamalu. He was a third round pick. Obviously, he's not. I mean, he's an okay starter, but I mean. Not many guards get drafted. You're starting to see more now, but before recent years, it was kind of rare to see a guard be taken in the first round because it's not the sexy pick. But now I think teams are starting to catch on how valuable they are, and you're starting to see centers and interior linemen getting taken.
See, and I don't get that. It frustrates the shit out of me because if I went back 2 years ago in the draft, the best player in that draft is Quentin Nelson, and he's a guard, and he's completely changed the way that Colts team is. So. Look, if you get a really good offensive lineman, center, tackle, guard, I don't care. Brandon Sheriff was the same situation when Washington drafted him. They didn't need one, but he completely changed the way the offensive line is. So guard's one of those things. I don't buy this notion of, oh, well, he plays guard, so he's less valuable. I don't give a shit. Does he protect my quarterback from getting hit in the head? Yeah. Okay, then I want him on my team. It's that simple.
If anything, guards are becoming more important because you're seeing more interior pass rushers come from the defensive tackle position. So,
and also when we're talking about first round picks and early second rounds, or even just second rounds in general, you don't draft based off positional need. I mean, you draft best player available, and then there's a couple people you have ranked in the same tier. Then obviously the tiebreaker is positional need. But first round's all about getting studs. This last draft, they didn't expect Andre Dillard to be there that far. You know, they said, oh, we had Jason Peters, but he might be gone after this year. We see a stud left tackle that could be there for the next decade plus. They went up and got him, even though obviously we have other needs on our team. They just had someone they had on the top of their draft board. You don't start reaching, oh, we need a linebacker. We have a first round pick. Who's the best linebacker available right now? That's how you get, stuck with overdrafting players. You get stuck with Marcus Smiths, and you get stuck with Danny Watkins type players.
Mike D is fired up. Ever draft a linebacker or guard? How about a corner that doesn't suck, assholes? Assholes? You didn't even spell it right. If you're going to call us assholes, at least fucking spell it right, motherfucker.
Is he calling us assholes, or is he saying
I don't know.
Or is he saying the corners suck assholes?
Us assholes? Are you calling everyone assholes? Like, what's going on here?
I think he's saying the corners suck assholes.
How about a corner that doesn't suck, assholes?
Not suck, assholes. The corners suck assholes. We're getting
I love how we're
holy
arguing
shit!
over
That's actually literally what he's saying, because he didn't put a comment.
Yeah,
how about a corner that doesn't suck, assholes? So hold on. Do you have some sort of inside scoop that that every corner on our team likes to lick the asshole, likes to give a little pinky stinky?
All right. Well,
we've hit a new low. We've hit a new low.
He said corners suck assholes. They love to suck assholes.
All right. I don't want to end this like we ended last week. So I'll answer this seriously.
All right,
we're drafting this many.
Should I put a new thing up?
Please.
Wait, hold on. Let me answer this one.
Quinn Nelson is a monster. All right, go.
That's true. All right. Yeah, okay, fair enough. When we draft a lot of cornerbacks, and the question now becomes, is it that these corners suck, or is it that we suck at developing them, or or is it both? It could be both.
Could be.
Sidney Jones was one of the most instinctive corners coming out of college. Is it he sucks? Is it he's not the same player he was pre-injury? Is it we're not developing, or is it that we're playing a different scheme that was in college? There's a lot of factors that go on into it. Secondary is one of the hardest transitions, I think, from college to pros. So it's tough to say. I mean, it could, maybe we're just terrible at developing them. Are we bad at, or is it both? Are we bad at drafting and we bad at developing? It's a question that we need to figure out. We need to answer. That's for sure.
I know I'm not exactly an NFL front office guy. I have had my shot at evaluating some NFL guys in the past, but I won't ever act like I'm an all pro. But I will say this: corners are the position I hate to evaluate the most, because it's the one I can speak to with least amount of confidence because of so many different variations. Hey, are we in press man? Is he in two read? Is he dropping to the corner? There's so many different factors here that makes it really hard to evaluate. So, I mean, I know it's probably not a great answer here, but in my opinion, it's the hardest position to evaluate coming out of the draft.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. It's because what I hear is in college you play the man, and then in the NFL you play the air. You play the air between the quarterback and the receiver. So it's like a completely different philosophy, and guys are moving so much quicker. So that's kind of the thought process I hear as to why it's the hardest. Do you know why it's the hardest, Brendan?
Well, I mean, hardest position is because it's the only position where you consistently move backwards every snap. So let's kind of start there. But as far as the evaluate, I think it's because you have teams that will do a whole bunch of different type of schemes. Simple man, then you'll have two read, then you'll have zone. Those are typically the three different types. Then after you have those three different types, you have guys that are more exclusive. Richard Sherman's a great example of it. Sherman plays almost exclusively zone coverage. He doesn't really play a lot of man. Then you look at guys who play a lot of two read. A guy here like Marcus Peters from the Ravens. He plays a lot of two read, not a lot of man-to-man. Then you have a guy like Ramsey. Okay, he plays a lot of man-to-man. So there's a lot of different buckets here. And then once you fill those buckets, Then you got to figure out, well, what's your defensive coordinator want to do? Okay, Jim Schwartz likes to play off a lot. All right, well, then maybe a guy like Marcus Peters, who plays a lot of two read, he's a better fit than a guy like Richard Sherman. So there's a whole bunch of different variables when it comes to corner. The only other position I think that's kind of unique like that is defensive end, because if you're playing an odd front, even front, over front, under front, whole bunch of different variations there as well. But I know we're going really, really in depth here. Corner is one of those positions, honestly, I would rather pay a lot of money in free agency because I know what he is, opposed to rolling the lottery ticket of the NFL draft.
It's a good call there. Good call. All right. Final thoughts now as we're nearing the end. We're 55 minutes in. We kicked Brendan off at 6 and then came back like multiple times. So we'll finally end this now.
Go Sixers, baby. Let's go. Let's beat the Celtics. I want to see, Horford dominate his old team. I mean, I don't even know who they really have to match up against, Horford or Embiid. So, I got the Sixers shirt on right now.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they can cheer up Philadelphia a little bit, hopefully, until Sunday where we can get that W.
Both me and Adrian both took the Sixers to represent the East in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I don't think we're
well in the NBA Finals.
In the NBA Finals, excuse me. And I took the over. Hang on, let me make sure I give this quote right. The number was 54.5. I felt with a lot of confidence I took that over. For total wins, that is. Excuse me.
Sixers, my boys. Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons. I completed the emojis today. I completed because Al Horford, he didn't want to chime in.
He did.
Well, he did one.
Wow.
He was supposed to do 6. So I did 6 snorting emojis to complete the process. That's what I did. All right.
To be fair, I feel like Al Horford's like old. He probably checks Twitter once a week.
He probably doesn't even know what Instagram and Twitter is.
They probably were like telling him in the locker room, "Hey, go on Twitter and put emojis." Like, how do I get to my emojis on my cell phone?
Yeah, that's probably exactly what happened. Absolutely what happened.
Guys, I'm gonna burst a lot of people's bubbles. A lot of these professional athletes, they have someone running their social media accounts, and I'll put a lot of money that Al Horford is one of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to bet more than 69% that he has somebody.
His sister's very active. I wouldn't be surprised.
That's okay though. It's okay. I completed it for the team. I did it. 6 snorting emojis. Eagles, Sixers. Let's go. 6.
One last question.
Sure.
Does Ben Simmons hit a 3-pointer tonight?
Yes.
Adrian?
Yes.
I'm going to say not tonight. I'm going to say it doesn't come tonight. Boston's a good defense. Doesn't come tonight. It's going to come second.
My brain is telling me no, but my heart is telling me
your heart.
No.
I know my heart is beating really fast and it wants to say yes, but my head is just like banging against the drum. It's just like, no, it's not going to happen tonight.
All right.
We'll see. What do you think, Brennan? Is it going to happen?
I think he will. I think
shit!
Let me rephrase this. Will he attempt a 3-pointer?
Yes, he will attempt.
I think he'll attempt one. I don't know if he'll go in, but I think he's going to shoot one, and that's it. We're going to get one.
Shoot one near the end of the shot clock, and it's not going to go in.
All right. As long as he shoots it, it's a step in the right direction.
I'm going to say the confidence builds though as the year goes on.
I hope so. I would hope so. I can't get any worse. There's nowhere to go but up, baby.
Yeah, that's true. No, it's very true. All right. Well, let's see if the Sixers can get up today and win one against Boston. That's Brennan Albert, Mike Skulski. I'm Adrian Fedke. We're out of here.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.